Hey everybody. So this one is just meant to be kind of a fun assignment to get you guys thinking about how narratives operate. So we're going to be using AI. Um, if you're following the news a lot, they talk about how AI is coming for Hollywood and how AI is coming for writers. And part of the reason for that, in my opinion, is because of the nature of sort of a lack of creativity in our media. What I mean by that is once they get a formula working, they really don't do much other than iterate on the formula. It's why we get these shows that are, I call them soap opera esque, but they're just formulaic, right? You get Law and Order, then you get Law and Order SVU, then you get Law and Order New York, you get CSI, you get CSI Las Vegas, you get NCIS, right? Like the idea being is that you're iterating on a known thing, and that doesn't require a whole lot of creativity. But behind it all, that known entity, that's the logic, that's the logos that we keep talking about. When they're iterating on it, it's because it has form, and they can just change little things about the form and keep it going. Real Housewives, Real Housewives of LA, Real Housewives of New Orleans, Real Housewives of Salt Lake City or Austin or wherever. It doesn't matter, right? It's just the same thing. They find the same people in different locations with the same problems mostly. Um, so if we know that, we can start to see how the logic works. Um, Here for today, I have two sort of activities. You get to choose which one you're doing. One is going to require some knowledge of some role playing games that you may or may not have. In my classes in person, they're actually playing a role playing game in class, which is something we do. So here's the goal: you guys need to craft a narrative using artificial intelligence, following these prompts in order to sort of graph them, right? And it's meant to be fun and playful. It's going to take a little bit of time, mostly because it's a lot of call and response. So I don't want you to just go to ChatGPT or Gemini or whoever you're going to go to and say, craft me a narrative, right? Like that's not the goal. The goal is to get the AI to ask you the questions that, frankly, most of you are going to get asked. You're all going to have different answers, right? And so I'm going to run it through a sort of cycle here with you. This is actually using those AIs. If I click new chat, it will set up a game for me. And so this is using fifth edition of Dungeons and Dragons. If you are uncomfortable playing that, don't worry about it. Just use ChatGPT or Gemini or something else. This is also using those same large language models. Obviously, you're going to play single player, right? I'm just going to go very quick, but you can make your own character. You can actually chat with the AI and sort of have it develop a character for you. But I'm just going to go very quickly. If you are more sci-fi esque, you might want to go cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is generally futuristic. Um, you know, futuristic. There can still be magic. Magic here will generally look more like technology, where you have like nano machines doing that work or something else. And then you have the traditional fantasy, things like Lord of the Rings and whatnot. And so you choose it. I'm just going to stick with the traditional fantasy. It prompts me to do whatever. You can also create your own world. So you could actually sort of describe Avatar in here and do this using Avatar if you'd like. Go to next. Now it's going to make me make a character. And again, these are all 5th edition characters. If you don't know 5th edition characters and you want to do this, I would just stick to the simple ones, something like a barbarian or a fighter. You know, these guys don't have a whole lot of options. They are very simple. You just hit things with sticks. That's what you do. It could be a metal stick, it could be a wooden stick, it doesn't matter. For this, I'm just going to go barbarian because it's simple. And like I said, none of this matters, so I'll just do a Dragonborn. You guys could choose your own. That's the whole point. You choose your own alignment. Alignment is sort of a made up thing. You can see here, read them to figure out which one you are. And we'll go to the next one. Oh, I gotta pick one. I'm just gonna pick chaotic neutral. For this, you just are rolling stats. Again, if you don't know what you're doing, it's totally okay. Just click roll all here and then reassign to recommended. The AI will take care of it for you. So here we go. Those are really great stats. For rolling for HP, this is, again, you can see some of the downfalls in their system in that this is not accurate. If you play this game, you know that this is not how you roll for HP, but that's okay. We're going to go to next, right? And you just pick your weapons. You pick your skills. Here's where it really kicks off, and that's why I went through this whole process. Here is where you start to pick up your backstory. Remember that there's supposed to be this thing in the character development cycle that you have to want something. This is super interesting because if you actually start to fill this out, the AI will know that. It will actually prompt you to want something. And so you could type in whatever you want. For example, an outlander looking for work and money. Right? Very simple. And you could upload an image, but here just be like red dragon born in hides. Hides here just means hide leather armor or hide armor. You can even make your own GM. I'm just going to go normal. And that affects the personality. I think it actually affects the large language model you're using, but if the personality of the AI that's talking to you and generating these responses. So once you've done this, you've seen it takes me 5 minutes to do this real fast. It's going to generate a story for you. Once it generates that story, you're going to read that story. I am just going to sort of scroll over it. I leave everything normal, and it's like, oh, look, here's this guy. You can pause it and read it. So if you read through this, the big deal here is like you're getting a message that, hey, I'm going to go make money. But look down here. At the same time, a cloaked figure steps out of the shaded alleyway just behind you, lowering their hood, right? It's tiefling. You there. You look like someone who thrives. Like, there's a call to be like, what's this guy about, right? And so you might want to follow this guy. And it's giving you options on what to do. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do is to play this for a little bit. You get something like 100 messages every 4 hours. But what I really want you guys to do is, as you can see here, like, you get to discern what this character wants, right? Does he just want the money and going with the dwarf and ignoring the tiefling? Or does he want to follow that tiefling and get this artifact, right? Like, that might be the thing. And so you get to decide, and that's going to kick off your character cycle. You're now in the midst of that logic. The AI is going to generate narrative tension, right? You already have this narrative tension about now, like, you needed money, and now, especially if you're going after artifacts, like, there's a risk-reward thing going on where the tension exists between, like, I could have taken guaranteed money, or I could have taken the risk and went for it all. And what did you choose, right? And so that's kind of driving your character forward until you get back to, okay, well, I got money or I didn't, but now I need more money or whatever. You're going to do all 3 graphs for your story. Don't worry about telling me about your story. I'm not too worried about that part. Just play the game like it's meant to be fun. So this is option 1, where you can play this game with an AI. It'll ask you questions about roles, just a little bit about the interface. If you click notes, it'll tell you about your character. So it's like, oh, well, you have, a +3 to your constitution or whatever. And it's like, oh, we'll roll with your constitution. You can always just ask it questions. It generally knows the response. The other way to go about it is to use ChatGPT. But if we're using ChatGPT, I don't want you to give it all the prompts right away. That would be generic. And to be honest with you, that's what a lot of this conversation sort of devolves into is how do we use AI to generate narratives? So we're going to just ask it to make a narrative. It's going to be very generic at the moment. So you're starting to see, like, it's starting to try to understand the exposition. It's actually probably going to go through the narrative arc cycle with you, asking about, well, what do you want the tension to be? You can see here, what genre, what tone, what characters, right? Please choose short story or outline. Either works. And so we might say, I want a romance set in Avatar, The Last Airbender, with a firebender and a airbender set just before the war. And now it's going to say, oh, great. Yeah, there's a lot to do this, right? Embers in the Wind, right? As you're seeing, it's setting up your narrative. And what you can do is now go back in and you can start to play with it. Like, I don't want you to just take this prompt and run with it. I want you to, if it doesn't fit the cycles, like, fix it. Get a story you want to tell. And again, I'm not going to ask you to sort of posit it here. The difference here is here you're going to have to read this story, right? And then you start to see, oh, well, I need, like, you're really just barely getting the beginning, right? Because you get them meeting, but that's not the love story. And so you're going to have to continue, right? You're going to be like, oh, well, you know, you're going to iterate. That's the whole point here, is to learn how this iterates, right? To learn how it uses this thing, this logical structure to generate new things and new things. And so you don't really have to necessarily change the story to make it longer. You could change the story to add depth. You could change the story to add tension. Right now, the tension is just about, right here, it actually seems more like she left, right? That was it. Like, they had one night and she took off. Is that really romance? Is that the story you wanted? And so I want you guys to play with these things for a little bit. Your DQ will be you uploading the 3 graphs. You can just use the 3 graphs that I've already shown you. You can use the PowerPoints. But I want to see the narrative tension on a graph. I want to see the character development of the main character on a graph. One of the problems you're seeing here is that there's not really a main character. That's a problem. If you're going to tell the story, one of these people has to be the quote unquote good guy, right? Like, them leaving is a problem. You have to follow one of the characters. And so we could talk about that. Like, if I were to give this to Hollywood, that would be their initial response. It's like, well, who are we following, right? Because it seems like we're following him, but it's in third person narrative. Like, that's a problem. So play with it. Try and develop a narrative that you want in a world you want. I guarantee you it's going to be better than a lot of fan fiction out there already. Uh, you're going to give me the 3 graphs: tension, character development, and again, here your problem is you don't have a main character. You don't know how they're going to come back to that new normal. And give me the plot development, right? Here, their plot really doesn't develop anything. And that's, to be very clear, why there's a lot of criticism of creatives in Hollywood, because most stories in Hollywood, as I talk about in my class a lot, they don't do very much. They don't change stories. They don't make new things. They just iterate on things that already exist. And it's really boring. There's no meaning to the narratives we're getting today. So I wanted you guys to play with it and see how that works, and maybe get some understanding on why, you might not want AI to be as universal in creative work as people are trying to make it, because you can see it's really cheap and easy to make a narrative, but the narrative is also cheap and easy. Um, in the DQ itself, I'm going to have you guys sort of write a 200 or so word reflection on the actual process of doing this. So please don't just ask ChatGPT to write you a narrative, right? And then take the first thing that pops out. Change it. And then talk to me about the changes you make and why you make them. Talk about those choices. Talk about how it may not be satisfying as a character or may not be satisfying as a narrative without some changes. And so how you iterated on that, how you made small changes to the narratives that progressed. If you're doing this one, by the way, you can actually change the models. So you can see right now that we're using DeepSeek. You can change it to any model you want, ChatGPT or anything really. So you can actually change the model and play with it to change the story. That might be a fun way to play with this one, is to play with one model for a little bit and then change the model and see how the model changes the narrative development. But it's just meant to be a fun assignment. It's the only thing that you guys are doing for this particular thing. I'm not going to have a whole bunch of other work for you. If you have any questions, you could hit me up on Discord or on Canvas and we can talk about it. But yeah, I just wanted to give you guys a fun way to look at narratives and understand that because they're so logical and structured, that a computer can write them. That doesn't mean that it writes them well or what it produces is good. That's a whole different problem. So here you can start to see and play with that notion of, you know, especially reflecting back on how you guys use ChatGPT to make your lives cheap and easy. But those responses may not be as meaningful to your professors, your friends, your whoever, especially as you guys enter the job market. That's going to be a really important question, is how you take ChatGPT responses and write job letters, because the job letter will actually have an AI reader. So having AI help write it is a great tool to help the AI readers read it. But once you get through that first AI filter, then you actually have the people hiring read it. And if you sound like a robot, they're not going to want to hire you. So just think about how this all works and how it's changing your world and how these tools require oversight and knowledge. You don't just jump into them. You don't hand a child a Sawzall, and you guys shouldn't be just throwing everything into ChatGPT. Tools are very important, but how you use them is the most important part. So have fun and enjoy. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll talk to you later.